Welcome to the Life of Being podcast, where we talk about all things life from a healthcare perspective all around the world. I'm your host, Kelly Tan, and in each episode, we'll explore stories, science, and wisdom to help you live well, think deeper, and express life fully. Let's begin. Today we're super excited to have Dr. Kelly Jane McLaughlin joining us from the UK. Dr. Kelly is a passionate chiropractor, educator, and mother who has spent the past 2 decades building thriving family-focused practices alongside her husband Liam, first in the south of UK and more recently in the stunning Lake District. As the mother of 3 energetic boys who were home-birthed, unmedicated, and home-educated, she lives the values she teaches and is deeply committed to empowering families to take a more natural and proactive approach to health. Kelly trains chiropractors across Europe to build successful family-centered practices with a special focus on caring for pregnant women and children. She is also the co-founder of Hayley and Kelly, a retreat and online community that connects like-minded individuals seeking growth, well-being, and alternative approaches to health through education, support, and world-class speakers. Dr. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Kelly. It's very lovely to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into your story. First, shall we start by you sharing your story in terms of how you got into chiropractic and also your journey to not just being a chiropractor for pregnant women, but also an educator. What's your journey like and why did you make a decision in terms of what you've done in each phases of life?
Okay. First of all, it feels like a long time ago now. I've practiced for 25 years. It's like, wow. I don't have one of those stories. You know, there's sometimes people have these brilliant miracle stories where they were adjusted, and I don't have any of that. I went to college. When I went to chiropractic school, I'd never seen a chiropractor to be adjusted. My first adjustment was in the student clinic. I knew that I wanted to do something with people, and I knew that I wasn't going to want to go down the medical route that had been suggested to me at school. I did work experience at different places, and then this chap who was actually not a chiropractor but used to teach at my college came to my school in Germany, which is where I grew up, and he started chatting about chiropractic, and I thought, that sounds great. So I went to chiropractic school, and then it was when I was there that I really learned and understood what chiropractic could be. And listening to the likes of Adrian Wenban, there was 2 significant points in my kind of early chiropractic experience. So Adrian was talking on stage, and he talked about how people who've listened to me before will hear this story all the time, but he talked about the likelihood of anything happening by chance was the same as a whirlwind going through your backyard and creating a Boeing 747. It was statistically impossible, and it just blew my mind. I was thinking, well, if that's true, which he was very convincing that it was, like, what does that actually mean for us? And in a similar time, Guy Reekman was at our college. I went to the ACC in Bournemouth in the UK. It's changed dramatically over the years, but at the time we still had external speakers come, and he talked to us about how he'd raised his children, and about how he had never used antibiotics for them, about how he wouldn't, about how the body heals itself. And I remember being really annoyed with him. I wasn't happy. I thought this guy was like quite arrogant to share those ideas, but it was a really pivotal point for me. And then going back through, when I look at times that really changed my mind about things, that was a very significant point. I really remember it very clearly. I even remember I was sitting in the lecture hall and my mind just was exploded, really. And then over time, people like in early days, people like Ted Coren, I would hear him talk about the big idea. It was actually my now husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, but had gone to listen to Ted Coren over a weekend, and he talked about the big idea and talked about innate intelligence. And it was like, wow, this is really good stuff. And I was still a student at the time. So that was quite tricky because you have to do a lot of hoop jumping then to get out of college. And then I was very, I would go to any conference that anyone would pay for a student to go to. And we went to some not so great ones, but we went to some brilliant ones as well. And the first Chiropractic Essentials in the UK, where Jim Sigafus was speaking, a great friend and mentor, Stu Bittman, was speaking. So that was a really significant point for me then as well. And then probably when we had children was the next big change. So Dr. Sarah Farrant is a great mentor and friend of ours, and we did a lot of work with her for quite a long time. And she really helped me put into words what I understand about how the body works, about the vitalistic or the salutogenic approach to life. And that was amazing actually to work with her. It helped with our practice, but it was around the time when we had children. So we always knew the decisions we were going to make, but it just helped me feel much more confident in explaining that, which was really important actually at the time, because there weren't many people around doing things differently. There still aren't now. It's just now it's a little bit more accessible. And there are more people, which is lovely. And then I think just through time, a good friend of mine who is actually a very quiet lady, but a real inspiration, she kept asking me to teach us how to look after pregnant ladies. And it was just something I learned. My first boss was amazing, but didn't want to see kids. So I had to learn really quickly, like how to look after them, really. He's very good with them. It's just not his interest. So I learned to do that, and as a course of doing that, realised that if we saw pregnant ladies, we didn't have to see a lot of the children that we were seeing in the way that we were seeing them, because it was very much like endpoint damage situation. Whereas if we see them during the pregnancy, the mummies, or particularly preconception, then we don't get to that point. Sure, kids still need to be checked as soon as they're born, obviously, but it's a different platform. It's a different landscape when we can see them when they've had a really lovely, healthy pregnancy and birth. So my friend kept saying to me, can you show me? And I said, yeah, no, sure, but we'll need a couple more people. And then we did that first workshop. I think there were about 20 people there. And then I was like, oh, okay. And I wanted to do a good job for her. So I did put quite a lot of effort into doing it. And I thought, well, actually, if it helps her, then maybe we can help other people. And then from that, it's really just escalated. And I always say to people, like, I don't feel like what I do is anything particularly special, but I love it, and I think everyone can do it. It's not like, I'm not more clever, like more intelligent or better technique or anything, but I just love what I do. And I think that everybody can do that if they just practice, and if they just love it as much as you can, and it's their area, they can do it as well. It's like we all can do it to that level. Yes. So that's hopefully a whistle-stop tour of how it came about. But yeah, that's kind of where we got to today.
I've heard of your story and background also with the previous interview with Dr. Dawn McDonald. I'd like to understand, like, when was the light bulb switch on when you thought that pregnancy was actually the point instead of pediatrics? Because people tend to start from pregnancy first, and then they focus more on peds because the we're going to start from baby, but from your end, you're going to, okay, I'm going to focus more on from where they start. So when did you have this understanding?
I think the biggest light bulb moment, and I'm sure there's lots of little ones that all added to it, but I remember seeing a mum, and she'd had 4 babies, and her 5th child was born, and he came out as what they call a stargazer, which is really unusual. So instead of the head presenting when it's born of this part of the head, they actually come out with their face, which is actually really difficult to deliver a baby like that. And she was telling me about how the midwife that she had picked up, it's amazing, I actually don't remember the child's name, which is quite unusual, but I really remember the story. And she was telling me that the midwife that she had was someone really experienced, thankfully. And although she'd had 4 children, she kept saying to the midwife, it feels different. And the midwife had looked after her with not her 4th, but maybe her 2nd and 3rd. And I just remember the importance of that midwife really knowing what she did and really understanding birth. And that child could have had a really different outcome, but actually because somebody understood and knew what they were doing, it actually went okay as much as it could do. Then she came in to see me, obviously, with the child, and that was really quite a significant point. And I just think it was probably a thing over time, like you start to see these children, and then maybe like 15-ish years ago, things got really bad. Like, I don't want to use the word bad because it's not it doesn't empower people, but they just got bad in healthcare. It's been going on for ages. There was a lot of change, and it felt like it was really ramping up. And I just thought, we need to do something here. Like, we need to advocate, because women are becoming the underdogs. I talked recently, I feel like there's a war on birth. Like, if we can control birth and we can disempower women, then we control a lot. And that's a very difficult position to be in, because women, if they're empowered and they have healthy children and they thrive, the family thrives, the community thrives. When we don't have that, we have disempowered people, and then that affects everybody in that whole healthcare system. So I feel really, really strongly, most women don't even know the questions to ask. And then we see these babies, toddlers, adults, down the line who, if they'd had chiropractic care and their nervous system could flourish, what would their life look like? Like, could it be different? So there's not actually a light bulb. I do remember the stargazer baby. That was a really wow, there's a midwife out there who's pretty cool and stepping outside her comfort zone to advocate for this woman. And that was quite an important part for me. I remember thinking, yeah, we need to do something more about this. We need to be more like her. But yeah, lots of stories, I think, over time with babies that I feel like could have had a different birth outcome if the mum had felt more confident in her body and more trust in her body. Yeah.
You mentioned about like questions they didn't even know that they need to ask. If there's one message you can give to women, to female listening to this episode, what is one message you want them to take away and actually empower themselves?
But they just need to trust their body. And I think, unfortunately for us in chiropractic, we've seen, particularly since the show in 2020, everybody has lost the confidence in their health. They've totally lost their trust in their own bodies to heal. So if we just go back to sitting with like what feels right for us, I think that is where it needs to start. Like trusting that our bodies aren't broken, trusting we're not deficient in anything, we're not broken, we don't need fixing, but we do need to have confidence. Because when you make those, I hear people say all the time, oh, it's, we just trust my body. I'm like, that's true. But then there are also consequences of that. And people have to be strong enough and powerful enough in the trust to know then, well, if I choose to do that, this could happen. And if I choose to do this could happen. So trust, really, it's trust. And being able to say no. Like when I was pregnant with my first child, people would say, oh, where are you going to have the baby? And I'd be like, well, at home. And they did the whole, oh, are they letting you do that? And I was like, wow, this is extraordinary to me. And so if someone tells me I can't do something, it generally means I'm going to look to find out why, and then probably want to do it more. So I was just like, this is interesting. Yeah, it was really eye-opening actually being pregnant. It's like, people's perceptions were crazy. Yeah, they were crazy.
Well, I mean, the crazy people will call us crazy though. So like, what you didn't came from like a innate, intelligent, understanding family, but then along the way you understand. What is it that was it Dr. Sarah Farrant that taught about how the body works that actually clicks in your mind? It's like, oh, actually everything makes sense.
It was the language she used. Absolutely, the language. She's huge about language, and her knowledge is phenomenal about her word. What is it? Entomology. If she listens to this, she'll probably laugh. But I think the word's entomology, and it's like the breaking down of the words, like what they mean. Is that correct? Yes, what they mean. And she would go through things, and I'd be like, she would talk about what the word disease actually really means, and patient, and diagnosis, like to people that don't know. And I remember thinking, what? This is like, what? Maybe that's why we don't learn Latin anymore, right? So it was just really interesting. And she, through her support and that understanding of the language, because that belief and knowledge and confidence was there, but it's always quite difficult to advocate for yourself when it's difficult to put it. I find it when it's difficult to put it into words. So I can be confident and just say no, and someone could ask me why, and I would just say I've made that decision. But to have the words and understanding to be able to explain it easily, I think is invaluable. So it was really around her explanation of words, and then in her book, I know you sort of mentioned about some of the things you want to talk about were recommendations. She's got two amazing Vital Truth and The Health Illusion, and she talks there about just kind of how to explain things as well. And then she, in the Vital Truth, she talks about the allopathic, alternative, and then alternate. So I think it's trademarked actually, the word alternate as a different way of understanding things. So, the alternative understanding is that we will still give you something to take something away. So the alternative understanding of health is still like you are broken. So I will use homeopathy to fix this. I will have acupuncture, well, not traditional acupuncture, but in the UK, we'll have people that dry needle. So I'm not taking the drug, but I'm sticking a needle into the muscle to get rid of the tension, because it's an outside-in approach that your body's broken. Whereas if you look at the alternate message, that's like, well, what's actually the body teaching us? Why is my body responding to that? Aren't I clever to have adapted like that? How can I help my body work better to nurture that? Well, not work better, but work without interference to nurture that. So that explanation was also very cool. So, but again, it's her language and words. Yeah, she's amazing lady, done huge amounts for health in the world. And her husband Randall's phenomenal as well. So they would be a resource. I know we might get that to at the end, but they're definitely resources. They've got all sorts of online stuff you can do as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because it's very important for people to have the words to explain what's going on, isn't it? If not, then you'll get talked down or whatever they're going to do, isn't it?
Yeah. In the Health Illusion, she shares lots of stories. So The Vital Truth is an amazing book. If people aren't readers, or they maybe find reading more difficult, The Health Illusion is very story based. So I give that to lots of clients, because we have a lending library, so we have quite a few copies of those books. I just hand them out, and people they really like it because it's stories, and they come back and say, wow, this is why has nobody told me this often? Or it's very cool. So
that's amazing. Yeah, I'll look up the books. I've seen loads of people recommending that book too, so I think that'd be a really great book to start with. Now you have 3 boys. How old are they?
I have, our eldest is 18, he'll be coming up 19 soon. well, in a few months.
Right.
Then 17, and then nearly 11.
So 18, 17, and 11. All big boys now, hey?
All big boys, all taller, pretty much taller than me. The 11-year-old up to here.
Already?
The rest are way,
What do you feed them, hey?
A lot. Feed them a lot. Yeah.
How does it look like being home birth, unmedicated, and also home educated? Like, you might have this question a lot with different people, different parents. How do you do that? And also, what is one thing you want people to know more of?
In my world, it looks completely normal and it's like common. Everybody does it. My circle is my inspiration, like my husband, my children, and then my close friends. We all have very aligned values. We do things differently, so in my world, it looks like totally normal. And then sometimes when you step outside, you think, oh, it's like that's not how life is. So it can be a little bit tricky for children, because when they're in groups where people are, so for example, when the older boys were little, they had a lovely little lad who was in their group, but their mum would often say around them, he gets really sick all the time. He's got this really bad thing. His body can't do this. She'd go to give him his daily medication, which he had a lot because he had a really bad skin eczema. It was all over his body. It was really bad for him. So that's a difficult conversation to have with a 3 and a 4-year-old, because they don't understand. So I would navigate that by, and people probably criticize this, but it's worked out well for us. I would navigate that by not being in those situations. So the hard thing comes from making sure your children, for me, are exposed to different ways of life, but still, when they can't understand at that really little age, we just didn't put them into that situation. And then as they get older, we just say, and this is another thing that Sarah taught me, they just do things differently in their house. This is how we do it in our house. They just do things differently in their house. So it makes people not wrong, but it just means you're protected in what you do as well, which I think is really, really important. And my little one now will just say, like, sometimes he's older now, but when he was a little bit younger, he would often say to me, Mum, you need to go and tell them about chiropractic. I think they don't know. And he would be like, he would see differences. And I'd be like, well, we could do, but, they're not in the practice and they might, So he would see those differences and be like, we need to tell them. We need to tell them how the body works. And we need to, so he's a little bit of an advocate for it, which is cute. But it's different in the real world. And, I don't watch TV. I've not listened to news for years, like decades. And I just always think, if something big's going to happen, I'm going to hear about it because people are going to tell me by osmosis. And that's generally is really well. Yeah. So I don't have any of those inputs. My family don't have any of those inputs. They navigate themselves well. Yeah, like my middle one loves sugar, loves sweets, right? So there's things to do, but we talk about that, and I try and help him make good choices. So he makes sure he loves really good food. So he'll know that if he wants to have junk, make sure he's still eating the good food before. Regular adjustments are just part of life. We do supplements. I'm not always a huge fan, but the stuff that we really need. So we're vitamin D. We live in England, right? North of England, so there's no sunshine. So vitamin D, omega oils, all those things. It is just part of like what they do and who they are. Like good food and movement outside and things have just always been part of life. So that makes it actually very easy. Whereas I think if someone's embarking on this and they haven't done any of those things, it's like, well, where do they start really? They just start with something easy. Like it's got to be sustainable. It's got to be something that can become a habit. So and that's probably more difficult. So but it just looks normal to me, but I know it's not. Yeah.
How did you explain the chiropractic story to like a 3-year-old? How would you explain that?
They are way easier to understand than adults. Seriously.
Why do you think so?
When we have the small kids in, I'll just I say, in here's the brain, and they go, it talks to the body, and they're like, yeah. And I said, it does it through here, and they're like, okay. And then you just say, we're just helping you be your best. We're helping you thrive. We're helping you jump higher. I tell every child their body is brilliant. So when we're doing assessments with children, I often, because you're looking for things that are challenged, right? I always say to the parent and the child, you're perfect as you are. We just help your body, help that flourish and thrive. And I keep it super simple. Honestly, I think children understand it way better. Like I have a little boy, he's 6, and he comes in and he goes, just adjust me, and he lies down. If he's really challenged, he just knows, and he's and he gives me the thumbs up, and then he goes, if it's a bit sensitive, because that was a big subluxation. I'm like, I do use the word subluxation with them. They all know it. They all repeat it. It's just like, kids are just easy.
Yeah.
And they know, because they know how their body feels different. And I'm not talking about symptom wise. I'm just, I'm talking about those people that just say, I feel calmer, or I feel more energetic, or like, kids are just way easier. It's the parents that are tricky.
They're not like really brainwashed yet in a way, isn't it? So they just understand way better.
Yeah, very much so.
What sort of resources you can share for people who like to venture into this home birth, home education thing? Because it sounds like a huge leap, as you said, if someone has never heard it before or never done any of it before. So what sort of resources do you share to people who are interested to being in that part of the world?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually, Kelly, because it is like, where do you start? I think it's very difficult to be solely in the medical profession in the UK. I know the stats are no different for Australia or America. I actually don't know about where you are. I think it's probably very similar.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It fluctuates a bit, but people are often scared. And then the people that say that they want to have a natural birth or a home birth have done absolutely no reading around it, but they are still going to go into a system that doesn't support that. So there is a time-based system. Your waters break here, you go into labour here, you've got this many hours to deliver the baby, you've got to do this by this time. It's like tick box, tick box, tips.
Yeah.
So the most important thing people can do, as always, is just empower themselves. That looks like whatever way they get good information. There's something in the UK called AIMS, AIMS, so the Association for the Improvement in Midwifery Services. They are UK-based books, but the information, the stats will be different slightly, and the research, but the logic and the information behind it is excellent for anybody that's going to have a baby. It's written by midwives, so it's very medically based in that aspect, but they understand and they support birth, so a natural birth and natural pregnancy. So they have a massive amount of information, which is excellent, and I'd highly recommend people look into that as well if they're having babies themselves or working with people that are having babies. You need to get yourself a primary care provider who is your person throughout the whole time. We know that if you have continuity of care, i.e. you have the same healthcare provider, that's usually ideally a midwife, from the start all the way through to after the baby is born, your improvement in a good birthing outcome significantly increases. So having a one person, now you can have different people during if you need to have different help, but having that one person. So a lot of people talk about building a birth team, and I think that's really important as well. Most chiropractors will be the person that the pregnant lady sees the most, and so that's quite a responsibility, but I think it's really important. So it's continuity, it's that. And then if anybody, chiropractors, want to do more training, there's the ICPA do amazing stuff. They do a lot of it online now. Amazing. I would highly recommend them. They're very congruent. The information they have is it's just very thorough. It's just brilliant. They're an excellent organisation. So the ICPA, I would highly recommend getting yourself organised and trained with them as well. They're good.
And also your seminar, Hayley and Kelly.
Well, yes, thank you. Yeah, of course. I mean, people always, I love it. I do 2 levels. And so the first one is if you've never had any experience with pregnant ladies, anyone can do that. And the second one is more advanced. So which actually a lot of people still come to even when they don't have that much experience, because I like to think it's pitched at everybody can learn. And then people that are there that have a lot more experience, they will take more away from it. And people that don't can still be exposed to what else people might be shown and asked.
You've been a long time in practice, almost 25 years now in practice. We know that the stats with graduates, most of them leave the profession within the first 5 years. How do you get so passionate in this profession? What drives you, and what is it that you want graduates to understand the incredible profession that we're in? Yeah,
it's a sad stat, hey? It's really sad. And I think a lot of people are blaming the colleges, and it's a major problem, of course. We have the Scotland College over here, which is phenomenal. I think that will help. Well, it will be legacy changing, really. But I always remember Brian Kelly said, I was listening to him speak years ago, and I love listening to him. And he said, he was speaking to another principal, and he said, I can't never remember the college, but he said to the principal, what's your greatest regret? And the other principal said, my greatest regret was graduating Jim Sigafoose. And Jim Sigafoose came from a super reductionistic, medicalised college. So I don't think colleges can really be blamed for everything, because when you look at him, he's one of the great giants of chiropractic, and he came out of a school like that, but still had that epiphany. So college has got a lot to do with it. It's a huge problem, but I still think we can save these graduates if they get themselves a mentor and if they get themselves supported in those first really 2 years. I'm a member of the United Chiropractic Association, UCA. You can be a foreign member of them as well, like if you're abroad. And they have something called Chiro Buddy that they do, like they support students in conferences. And, you know, chiropractic we pay for students to go. So like it's amazing what they do to support students. And I think the students need to get exposed to that and get involved in that, because when they qualify, it's quite lonely. Most people will take on an associate because they want to have time off. Really, they're too busy and they want to take a step back slightly and they want someone to come in and keep the business going. Not many people will support that student when they first qualify. They're just either not around, don't have the time. You know, we're busy as chiropractors, right? It's just, it's how it is. So having a mentor, Sonia Floriani was one of my very early mentors. She was a huge help to me in my early years. And my first boss was amazing. Like Christoph and his wife, Sarah, who run the practice, actually just down the road from us now. We've come back up here. They really helped and they gave me a lot of time, support, trained me on how to communicate with the report, how to adjust the lumbar spine. My adjusting was terrible when I first got into practice in the low back. Like, you know, like he spent hours with me. And at the time, I just didn't appreciate how, I did know it was great, but I hadn't really appreciated how amazing that was until after. So there's lots of ways of students are determined, but they kind of need to know how brilliant their profession is, I think, to know that they can do that then as well. So exposure to seminars, hanging out with cool people, listen to podcasts like yourself that you're doing, anything to like lift us and know that actually there's a lot more out there than what you're currently doing on day to day, which might feel a bit overwhelming for them.
With that said, what sort of books and resources you would share to people who talk about students and also like in the general public, if you have any?
Yeah, we have lots. We do that. So the AIMS booklets are what I have for regular clients. And we have any health, natural parenting books we have for parents. So a chap called Steve Biddulph, he wrote books called Raising Boys, Raising Our Parents. Naomi Althort wrote an amazing book. I can't remember the title of it, but there's Raising Children, Raising Ourselves, I think it's called. So anything that's a natural parenting book, Better Art to Breastfeeding, those things are really important. And I would say to students, reading those books, as well as books like Sarah Farrant's books, the chiropractic books that are out there, you know, they're brilliant. There's a 30 principles that Scotland College did. That's really inspiring to listen to some great chiropractic stories in there. Pearls of Wisdom was written years ago. I think it might have been Liz Anderson Peacock that did that. But they're again a collection of an older book now, but it can make you go just like, wow, I didn't know chiropractic could be like that. So there's a lot of really good chiropractic books out there. I'm sure different associations, well, I hope they stock them as well. We do in the UCA. They have quite a lot there as well. So there's any natural, gentle parenting things, the stuff about pregnancy from AIMS, and then chiropractic stuff, particularly Sarah's things, and then obviously all the other books around which are good. So there's a lot. Podcasts are, you know, I'm old now. Podcasts are the way forward, really. People listen to them on the way to work. Yeah, we have a small community group, which you mentioned at the start. So thank you, Dr. Kelly, called Hayley and Kelly, and we have a parenting forum. So we have in there's lots of chiropractors or people that maybe are married to chiropractors or partners of chiropractors. And we also have some chiropractic clients or patients in there who want to live a chiropractic lifestyle. So we have guest speakers once a month. So obviously I'm biased. That's a lovely resource as well. And we have an active online community where people might want to post a quick message like, my 2-year-old's doing this, like, what would you do, kind of thing. And it's a lovely support network, because, you know, somebody else might say give them Calpol, but you might not want to do that. So it's like, okay, what else can I do to help support? So those are my resources.
So if people are interested to join your community, how can they find you then?
Thank you. Well, that's a good question, isn't it? No, if you go to Hayley, so Hayley and Kelly, spelt all one word. Hayley is Hayley, hayleyandkelly.co.uk. That's our website, so they can find us on there.
Is website are you most active there? Is there any social media you're active to, like Instagram?
Hayley and Kelly have an Instagram page as well, and we have a Facebook group or Facebook page, but the Instagram is probably a little bit more active. It's not myself that does that. I'm a bit like that. But yeah, you can contact us through there for sure. We have a contact email on the website as well. So
perfect. We'll leave all the information in the description below. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, understand more about health, life, you can just shoot a message to Hayley and Kelly website. Before we stop recording, what will be one phrase, one sentence you'd like to leave to the audience?
Just know that your body is brilliant.
That's amazing. What a great way to wrap up the podcast. Thank you so much, Kelly, for your time in terms of sharing your story and sharing experience. And we look forward to speaking again real soon in the future. So take care of yourself and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you for tuning in to the Life of Being podcast. Let us know what is your one key takeaway from this episode. And if this conversation inspired you, share it with a friend who might find it helpful today. Until next time, take care of your health and take care of your being.